Hello, welcome to this beginner's tutorial on console applications in Java. So first off, let me explain what console applications are. So normally when we have an application, this is Notepad, Windows Notepad. This application, there is a graphical user interface. We're interacting with it with the mouse. But in the old days, this wasn't really the way that we could interact with programs. A program in the old days would have text input and text output. So a console application is something where we have only text input and output. So let me show you an example of a console application. If I start out, click my Windows, find Windows logo here, and then start the command prompt. I type CMD to get the command prompt. And there is a program here called dir. So I can run that program just by typing the name of the program, and this program will list this current directory that I'm inside of called anonymous. So here I have some different files in here, and that's basically what it does. So in this instance, there's only an output from the program. So I type in dir, there's only an output. If I type dir/AH, A for attributes, H for hidden, then it will show me all the hidden files in this directory. So this is, in this command line, what we get here is we have the ability to add some commands to the program. This is not something I'm going to cover in this video. You should just know that this is another way of getting text into the program. And this means, for example, other programs will be able to run this with different commands. So there's a lot of these programs running. If we open up something like the task manager, we'll be able to see that a lot of the programs that are running, you can see right now I have Chrome open, I have this application, I have IntelliJ, I have a command prompt, and I have this one called Air Server running, and that's basically it. But if we count how many programs we have, so these are basically the 6 that are here under apps, but all the background processes that are here and all the Windows processes that are here, most of these don't have any user interface. This one, Windows Explorer, is the one that can show you different directories and stuff graphically, this one down here, and that's running all the time because it also has something to do with the other Windows. I'm not totally into that stuff, but you know, it's all here, lots and lots of programs, and all of these programs are running some sort of console or headless. There is no way of configuring them using a user interface or something like that. So it's slowing my computer down a bit, this thing here, so I'm just going to close it. So there's a lot of programs running that are running like these console applications. So it's nice to know how they work, how they get their input, and stuff like that. So this is what I'm going to show in this video. Sometimes we can also get some more input from the user. If I type dir/?, then I should get the help system for that command. And we can then see it says press any key to continue. So here the program is waiting on input from me, and this is what you're going to learn as well. So I press some random key like T, and then it continues. There can be more things. You can kind of also, it can ask, what are you sure that you want to delete this? You can type yes or no or all kinds of stuff. But you don't, this is a file program. You can work with anything else than files. You can whatever. So let's try to go into how to set it up. So this is basically the introduction. So let's go into how to set up the development environment. So I opened up IntelliJ already. I'm going to click New Project, and I click the Java one here. I set up the name for it, so I'll just call it console start or something like that. And you can set whatever build system here, it doesn't really matter. Whatever JDK, I'm going to add sample code, that's nice. I'm going to untick this one because it has some onboarding tips that I'm going to delete anyway. Just some, you can press here to start the program and stuff. I'm going to tell you anyway, so. And I'm just going to click create. and it's going to create a new program. It says reformat code, saving some settings, and now it's done. So we can see it's no longer running down here. I can maximize the window and zoom in a lot here. I'll just click here. This will make it show it in multiple lines. It always pops up with this Microsoft Defender configuration, and it just goes away by itself if I don't do anything. So first thing is that we can run our program in IntelliJ, which is equivalent when I wrote dir in the command line, it would be equivalent to running this program. Right now, this program is called console start. So basically I could do console start. It's a bit different from that because this is running in Java and stuff like that. But for now, let's just imagine we can start it like that. We can get some help here from IntelliJ just by running the current file. And it will show down here in a console that, or a command line, or what we want to call that, it will show down here what is the output of our program. So as I said, our input to the program is nothing. We don't have any arguments or anything. We just only have output, and that is hello world. So dir works the same way. It reads the hard drive and prints out to the user what's on the hard drive. And here we can see it says hello world. This is the system out print line. So this is how you can print out stuff from the screen. So the next part of this is we want to write our first console application. Check. We did that. But we also need to know that there are different ways of printing to the screen. So one of them is the println. This is one way of doing it. There is also, if I just say print without the ln, I can say here, just put number 1 here, and then I put the number 2 here. So. And I try running the current file again, and let's see what the output is. So again, it should write hello world, and the two others are different. So you might be surprised that it's writing 12, you might not, because this means line. So what it basically does is after hello world, it inserts a character, a special character that is, yeah, you could say it's invisible, but it actually goes to the next line. But the special character that goes to the next line, you can actually do that inside the code. If you do a backslash, it means special character and then n for new line. So if I do this, it will say 1 and then the new line character and then 2, so that they come to 2 lines, and I can put as many of these as I want. And it just keeps doing new lines. So the println is just a shortcut of putting a new line character at the end of this one. So this is why 1 becomes the next line because it says print line, and 2 becomes here because I'm using these here. So it's a bit easier to read print line maybe. So there are these two ways that I want you to know about for now that we can use. There's also one for print with a formatting. But I think let's not look into that. But for now, you just need to know these two and the differences between these two. You can look into different special characters. The most common one is, of course, the new line character. There's also another character that you might want to know about called T, which is tab. So this way, if I say want to, let me just remove this line here and try to run that, you'll see it inserts the tab character, the one normally left of the Q if you have like QWERTY keyboard or something, but the tab key, you can see it inserts a tab between the two, and we can make, you know, multiple tabs. And this is the way that dir can set up things a bit more nicely and stuff like that by using these tabs. So anything with backslash means special character, right? So if I do this /2, I might get into some trouble because I'm not even sure what /2 is. If it's, we can try to run this and see what happens, but I'm not sure what that is. But yeah, I get this weird character here. So it's probably the ASCII character 2 or something like that. So with, so yeah, so sometimes you might want, let's say you have something like this, my file, something like this. You want to reference that. So the problem is you actually want this one to be in here. So if you want to do something like that, you can escape the special character with the special character. So if you do like this, it will actually print it out only once. So you're saying special character, right? So this way you will get the correct here. So if you see something like this, sometimes this comes out by error to the user with 2 backslashes. It's probably because it's escaping something like that. So yeah, so system out print like this. This is the escape character or special character. So escape actually escapes to just the character itself. The other one, if you use the /, that's not protected in any way, or it's just fine. You don't need to do anything. It's only the / character that's kind of special. And here in IntelliJ, you can even see it changes color to something like that. So this is how you can print things out to the screen. And that's all fine and good and stuff like that. But how do you get things into the screen? So system out is a shortcut for the standard output stream, it's called. So you can kind of set where the program should send its text. So if you set the standard output, normally the standard output is here to the user in the console, but you could redirect that to another program or something like that. So yeah. What if we want input? Because often we would want something like an input from the user. So I already looked up here ways to read input from console. I think I kind of searched something like this in Google and came up with Geeks for Geeks, which is a nice, has a nice little description of this. So in the old days in Java, and this is probably what you'll find in a lot of places, this is how you can read from the keyboard. And I wouldn't recommend this, but let me show you. So you have to import 3 different parts of Java: buffered reader, IO exception, and input stream reader. And then you're going to create a buffered reader. You're going to, inside of that, create a new input stream reader, reading from the standard input, system standard input. And then you can use the reader.readline. So you can use the buffered reader's readline for reading a name or whatever the person is trying to do. So let me just copy this part into my code and let's see it's working. Oh yeah. So now I get some red stuff because some of the things that we need is the buffered reader. It's part of Java, so we need to import that. So I'll just hover and say import class, and hover this one and say import class. And fortunately, already knows that these are the ones. Then it has an error here on readline. And I'm going to say add exception to method signature. This is, I'll go into this last with exceptions, but basically when you're trying to read from the user, a number of things can go wrong, so you need to handle that somehow. So I'm just going to handle it by crashing the program, basically. So right now the main method up here, it says, I'll put it on a new line to make it easy, throws IO exception. So basically it will just throw a tantrum if it doesn't work. Okay, so this I can do. So this should print out the name of a person. Maybe I should ask the person's name, but if I put a name here like Peter, it will just print out Peter, right? I can, if I want to ask the user, I can say something like sout, and I press tab, system out print line. And then I can say, what is your name? Question mark. And then it will, you can see because I'm using print line, it will put the cursor that I need to write my name here. It will put it on the next line down here. So if I try to write something It will put it here, Julie, something like that. Oh, Julie. So what is your name? Yeah, so this is output to the user, this is input from the user. And notice that the program is halting and waiting with the read line. And this was the same thing it was doing on press any key to continue when I used the dir command before. So this is one way you can read input from the console. The other way you can do it, or one of the other ways I want to show you, which is a bit easier to use, is you can use the scanner tool, which was introduced many years ago, but a lot newer than this method. And this is probably the way that you will see most people using it. The cool thing about the scanner is it has a bit of, it has some more functionality, because you don't need the buffered reader in out. It does that behind the scenes, but also you can read different types of data in. So when you use the buffered reader like this, you will always get a string. So let's say that I want something like, instead of what is your name, then how old are you? And then I'm going to say, I don't want a string, I want an integer called age. And I say read line, oops, it says you can't do that because read line is going to read a line and you're not going to get an integer from that. This returns a string. If we want to do that, we need to use integer pass int read line, you know, and I can print out the age and then it should work. So this is a way of changing the string into an integer. Let me show you. So if I then put my age here, 12, it prints out 12. So that worked. If I put something else here, literally something else, it gets, it crashes. And this is what I told it to do, you know, throw an exception, and that's what it does. It says number format exception. You try to change something that cannot be changed into a number. It doesn't understand something else. So that doesn't work like that. So let's try something else then. So other ways of doing it was the scanner then. So let me try to get that one. And here we don't need to use the exception stuff. So I can actually go back here and remove this throws IO exception thing, remove the code that I have here, and put this one in. Again, now it doesn't use these. Let me just get a bit more space here. It doesn't use these up here anymore, so I can just remove those as well. And now it needs to use the scanner, and that's it. So pretty cool. I only need to use the scanner, and I don't need this error handling stuff because that's done by the scanner. Pretty nice. So here it can read a line. So for example, we could run this program, which will first try to read some text and then read an integer and then a float. So I can put some text here first. It could be something like, what is your name? Like, my name is Peter. And how old are you? I could say I'm like 23. And the last thing is you need to put a float, you know, how tall are you in meters or something like that. I can put 1.60 or something like that. And you can see I got an error on the last bit here. So it says there's something wrong, input type mismatch exception. So let's try that again. So this time I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to put in Peter, 23, and then 1.60 with a comma instead. And you said you entered float 1.60, but I used comma here. So this is kind of like a problem that you have to deal with sometimes. So because my computer is set up, it is set up in English, but I use Danish localization, and in Denmark we use comma instead of the dot for floating point numbers. So this way it actually uses the localized version for this. So you need to be a bit careful with that. But when it prints it out, it still prints it out in the American English way of doing it. So it's pretty. So there are some localizations that you have to be aware of in that. But you also saw that the same thing happened when I used the dot, or if I wrote something wrong here, I still get this error thrown, but now it's just handled within the scanner itself. It doesn't need to handle anything. So it's a lot easier to use than the other one. So just new scanner system in, pretty easy. Another way of doing it is you can also use the console class, so you can say system console readline. So this is an even more like quick and dirty one, and this way you don't need to import anything because system is automatically imported. I'm not going to show that. It's no different from this one up here. Sorry, this one up here. It's just a very short way of doing it. There's also some other stuff here which I don't think, let me look into that also. But our data input stream, I'm not going into that, but let's look briefly at the console commands as well. Sorry, the command lines as well, arguments. Let's look at that also. So yeah, so that's the basics of it. So there are these two ways that I would recommend using. Either use the scanner or use the other very, very simple way, system console readline, if you just want something real quick from the user. But otherwise, I would recommend the scanner because it has these conversion features built in, which just makes your life a lot easier, right? Okay, so before we go any further, I'm just going to add one thing here. Command line arguments. And I'm going to go over that real briefly. So for the command line arguments, one of the things that you see is that when I use the dir command, I use the /AH for getting all the hidden files, or /?. And this is actually fed to the program through this thing here. So this is called an array. So it's basically a list of strings. And args is the name of the list holding it. This is just specifying that it's this array of strings, and this is the name of it. So we can get anything that's input to the program from this list of strings, and it looks at its space separated. So anything that's separated with a space is going in here as that. And that's basically it. That's basically what I'm going to show about. I don't want to go to details with that because this video is going to be long then. Okay, so that is kind of command line arguments. That's coming from there. Then I have a point here with some basic control structures. So sometimes we can use some structures for testing something. Let's make a program that will test if we are old enough for drinking or something like that. So in my country, you have to be legal age. Let's say here legal age is, I don't really know if there's a legal age. To buy alcohol, you need to be strong alcohol, you need to be 18. So let's do something like, how old are you? Right? So this way it will print this to the user, and then we'll use the scanner to get the input. So let's just remove this one and say next int. This should give us the next integer. Age equals next int. So, sorry, this will give us the age. Now we want to calculate if the age here is enough for buying alcohol. So I'm going to say that if the age is less than the legal age, then we're going, you are old enough no, you are not old enough. So we're going to say that if the age is under the legal age, you're not old enough. Otherwise, we're going to say you are old enough, right? So you're not old enough if you're under the legal age. If you are equal to legal age or older than legal age, you're old enough. Let's try to test that, the logic that we put in here. So how old are you? I'm 14. You're not old enough. Ah, that's a shame. Now I'm all sad. And secondly, let's say 18. That's kind of a corner case, some corner case here, like just at the edge. You are old enough, so the system works. So if I'm 18, I can buy this strong alcohol, and if I'm not, then I must go home and drink my soda instead. So that's the basic control structures. We can use that. And by using the scanner and the next int, we have a very easy way to get the information that we need from that. Next thing is the exception handling. Sometimes there will be some exceptions here. So an exception can occur if I put in something that is not an age, because I'm looking for an integer here. So if I type in I am 7 with words like this, obviously I know that that is the number 7, but this Java will not be able to figure that out. So I will get this exception. What this exception is the program deliberately halting and saying something unexpectedly happened. I don't know how to continue. And what it says is that there is some error going from the main method, line 10, then into the program that the authors of Java wrote in this Java util scanner in line 2238. And we can actually go in there and see what it looks like. If we click it, we can see here, and we can go deeper into the code and see where does this problem come from. But this is complicated stuff. So what we're looking for is the blue one here. We can see it's line 10. And because the blue one, this is our code, we created the main. So if I click here, it says this line is the problem. And the problem is that I didn't put in a number. So maybe I can figure that out now. So what can we do about this? So what we can do is we can check something called exceptions. So I'm going briefly into this, but basically what we can do is we can start out by saying the age is going to be 0, because then you are by default not old enough. And then we can say try, and we can take and put what we want to try into this. So here, and I cannot use int here again, so I need to use this variable up here. So I type age here, we're going to get, and then we can catch an exception, and this will catch all exceptions that can occur in here. And then it says invalid age, and we could do something like system exit with status 0 or something like that. That will close the program before it continues, right? And we can also just not do that. Then it will just continue down here and say you're not old enough because my default value for age was 0, right? So let's try to run that code here, see what happens. So if I type in a legal age, something or illegal age like 12, you're not old enough. If I type it something like 18, you are old enough. If I type in something like gibberish here, it says invalid age and closes the program. If I remove this line, it will continue and show me that I'm not old enough. But I think maybe invalid age is better than saying invalid age, you're not old enough. Yeah. So it kind of depends on what you want. So that's basically it for exception handling. So you can handle exceptions by doing try, putting the code that can cause the exception into the try block, and then catching it and saying, what can I do about this? You saw before I can also put throw exception up here, but it won't help me because it's just going here, and you'll probably learn more about this later. But this is what I want to say about exceptions for now. So that's it with the exception handling. The next thing I think is debugging. So I just want to show you real briefly how I can find out this thing with age, for example. So before you saw that we got this error, and this is how I found out. But sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what is going on in my program. And I have these system out print line. Let's say I'm running this program, for example, and I put in some invalid thing here, and it prints out invalid age, and then it stops. And I can't understand, I do understand, we saw that before, but let's imagine I cannot understand why it doesn't go down here and print out one of these two. Because, you know, it says if the age is less than legal age, print out this, else print out this part here. So sometimes you get confused like this, you think, it needs to go either in here or in here. There's no other way, because age must have a value, legal age has a value, so there are no other values. If it's less than, then it goes here. If it's greater than, it goes, or equal, it goes here. There are no other cases. So it should print out one of these. Why is it not doing that? So of course you could print out some more system out print lines and try to understand what's going on. But I really think it's a good idea just to know a few things about debugging for this. So what you can do is you can click somewhere out here. It gets like a red, like a stop sign or something. And it is actually like a stop sign. So if I click red here, this puts in something called a breakpoint here. And the breakpoint will stop the program from running so we can inspect what is going on. I'm not going into detail, just really briefly showing you. So up here, there's this bug here, and it says debug. So if I click this, it will stop at this breakpoint. If I click the normal run, it will just ignore it. But with the debugger, it will stop here. We can now see different things about the program. It's a bit small here. I can't zoom in, but I can see the arguments that are here. I can see the values. I can see that it's empty. There are no arguments to this right now. So this is the only thing. Then I can step forward. There are some different navigational elements here. This will just resume the program like normal. This will step over this thing here. This will try to step out of this or into the code here. So if I use step into, it will go into the scanner class and continue to show me what happens here. So I'll skip over it. This will just continue to the next line. Let me show you. Click. And now I have the next line. So now we see there's also the scanner here. We can see a lot of information in the scanner class, which will just confuse us. So I'll just close that. But now we have two objects in memory. We have the arguments and we have the scanner here, right? And we can see all kinds of stuff. So now I'm at this point. I haven't run this yet. So let me just step over this one. And we can see that legal age, this is a new variable, is 18. And we say step over, and we can actually see the code line by line. So now it says next int. What will happen if I step over this one? Oh, nothing happens. That's because we're at the console. I'll write some gibberish here, and it will return back here. I go back here. And we can see now, oh, it goes in here. That's what I expected it to do. So it prints invalid age, and then I do this line, and it stops the program. Oh, now it makes sense. Now I know it's because I put the system exit here. I didn't want that, so I'm going to remove that. This is the way you can use the scanner for, the breakpoints for testing your program. And you can put any amount of breakpoints here if you want to, different places in the program. And if you just want to run the program without breakpoints, you just click up here. And if you want to run it with breakpoints, you can just click here. But the cool thing is the program will stop whenever it finds the breakpoint, and you can inspect the different variables. You can inspect everything as you go along. Another nice feature that I want to show you, which is the last thing, and it's kind of nothing to do with the other stuff, but it's about running the program. So if you click up here, it will always run the current file. But you can create a configuration so that when you click here, it runs that configuration. And you can do it automatically for this class by clicking here. Run main. Now it creates like a main run thing here, right? So we can now stop the program and I can create another. Let me just create a new class here. And let's call it, another. And inside this another class, I'm going to create a main method, which is, I'm just going to print out in another class, right? So that's the only thing it does. You can see that I can also run this method here, right? And now it will print out in another class. The cool thing is now it has a configuration for both main and another. So if I'm in here and doing other stuff, I can still run the other class. And this will come in handy when you have multiple classes and not all of them have main methods, because sometimes you'll have a class without a main method, some classless method, right? A classless, mainless class, let's call it that, sorry. And this one just have a method or something like, yeah, it's just public calculate int A, int B, some return. Don't get too worried if you don't understand this yet, if you're just starting out. So this has a method in here that I have here. Return type. Oh yeah, I need to put it in here. So that's it. The main list class is here. So if I'm in here, I cannot run this file because there's no main method in here. This has a main method. This has a main method. So these can be run, but this cannot be run. But I can still run the class called main from in here by pressing play. So for example, if I needed to use this main list class from my main class in here, like I wanted to add something to the age, I could say age, something like, I don't want to do it. That's going to complicate things too much. But basically, if I was using this class and working in this class and change something, then I could still run my main class from in here without having to open it and clicking the run current up here. Just an extra tip, right? Let's call it run configurations. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.